Welcome everybody back to Veil of Sound. And I am very, very happy to have these two fine gentlemen here on the show today, because I'm very sure that you have, if you're listening to post-rock, you have been listening to both. I'm pretty sure, because we have Damon Che from the wonderful Don Caballero, and we have Kristian Dunn from the not any less wonderful L1011 here. So thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having us.
And the reason why we are talking is your new project, Yesness. So first of all, who came up with a name for it? I love that name.
That guy.
No, it was, I would see, I disagree. It was mutual, because I wasn't thinking name, but I put the name out there, and then you recognized that it was worth catching. And so
it's true. Yeah.
I think it was perfectly mutual how we arrived at the name.
Yeah, we can. I'll sign off on that. I sent Damon a musical idea, and he responded to it via email with Yesness, all capital letters and an exclamation mark, meaning he liked it, obviously. And I said, that's a great band name. And it went on the list. We had quite a long list of potential band names.
Okay.
That became shorter and shorter until finally we settled on Yesness, despite some reservations.
Can you give us any of the ones that you cut out? Or do you select, nah?
Well, no, it's not that we can't. You don't have the time. There's a huge barrel of stuff we save and collect. And then when it's time to harvest, we scrape the thinnest, tiniest little razor thin margin off the top of the barrel. And that's what that's what you get to consume or digest or what have you.
So it sounds like Hemingway with his tip of the iceberg theory. And it's very interesting that when listening to a record that is full of so many diverse polyrhythms, full of so many diverse guitar lines and everything and bass lines, that Damon says, like, it's like scratching the thinnest layer. If that is your thinnest layer, then I don't want to know about the rest of the iceberg beneath the water surface. But there is something else where I say the band name is really perfect. The record has a very optimistic quality, if I may say so. It's very uplifting, and it spreads positivity. Is that something that you wanted to achieve with a record? Something uplifting, something positive?
I don't think anyone can afford to do anything but be their utmost positive at all times. I think that's literally the speed that our hair is being blown back at. You just have to be positive.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting to me that you said that. I think that's the first time I've heard the record described as optimistic, which I love. I think that's great.
Yeah.
But I definitely, when I was sitting down and coming up with ideas, I wasn't thinking, I want to make an optimistic record. That wasn't in my mind. But I don't think it was in Damon's probably either when he was coming up with his parts. But the fact that you said that is, I like. That's a good one.
Well, I think it's pretty easy. There are moments on the record which literally make you smile. And there are moments on the record where it sounds very, but where it sounds dark. But you always find a way to spin it around. And now, probably that is also because both of you are such experienced musicians. But I've heard that this time around with this project, the writing process was something very new for both of you. Is that correct?
I'd say so. I mean, I've done this sort of thing before, but not this. When I say this sort of thing before, I mean writing a record with someone who lives in another part of the world via email. I've done it before, but not at this level. I don't know, Damon, was this the first time you've really made a full record this way?
Yeah, that's what I told him right before you jumped on.
Yeah, it seemed to work. So, I mean, we eventually did get together at a real recording studio. We were physically at the same place to actually finish it off, but the writing process was remote.
And then how do we have to imagine that? Did you send each other ideas back and forth? Did you then elaborate on the other's ideas? How must we imagine that?
The way you just put it is accurate. Yeah.
Damon, did you want to?
I was just going to say MP3s.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you put your own layer on top of it and send it back, and then like how long does that take for you two to come up with a complete song? Is it a month? Is it 2 months?
We just have to just mature the tracks up back and forth, and then root out the traffic jams and the spot things might not work until we get the refined draft, and then it's it's still, there might, even in the recording studio, there might be a few things that get changed at the very last minute even.
So very yeah, you go ahead, Kristian, first.
Okay, I was just going to say that from the time Damon and I were introduced to it, we'd never met, and we were introduced via email by our friend Carl, who runs the label we're signed to. From the time that we had met via that email, in less than a year, we had written and recorded and completely finished the record. So I'd say it went pretty darn fast. And part of that, there's 2 factors to that, and you're looking at them. But one is I write really quickly, and Damon. Anyone who's watching this probably knows who he is and knows how insane of a drummer he is. But it's not just he has insane
chops. Some might have heard of it.
Yeah, the insane chops and technical skills. It's not just that. He has this really great creativity. So when he would send me his drum ideas that he put to my original ideas, 99% of the times, just right out of the gate, it was just perfect. And there was nothing more to do. He'd already done it. The song was kind of finished. So that's part of why it went quickly, I think.
Yeah, I've heard that the band is basically a blind date, isn't it?
A blind date?
Yeah.
Well, we could see each other.
Well, a blind date where we got to peruse through each other's press kits and just loved it,
Yeah.
So it's kind of like not a blind date when you're like, this guy's music is just the bee's knees,
And Dylan, is it Dylan? Sorry, Damon. Is it correct that what I've heard, this is like the first record that you've completely done in over a decade?
You're thinking of Matt Dillon. Matt Damon is the actor.
I'm thinking of you, Mr. Che. But is it correct that this is like your first full record in over a decade?
I used to have a tough time changing the subject, but that ceased to be the case when I was introduced to, what was it? No, it's been about, it's been, I had a long sabbatical.
Which is totally fine.
Well,
how does it then feel to be back?
It's going to have to be fine, because that's what was required for me to just get my footing back with a new commitment to just cleaning up my act and making sure that it was bulletproof, that it was relapse proof, and that I was here to stay on the new path of clean sobriety and just forging a new identity, etc.
Had you been playing on your drum kit, which we see there in the corner, had you used it in the time between, or?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't let my skills rust, or, well, no, I let them rust, but I didn't let them
corrode.
Yeah, corrode. Yeah. I mean, I did session work and things, from time to time I would, play session work, help out a fellow recording artist and, lay some tracks down, etc.
And how did it then feel when the idea of this new project came up? How did it feel for you?
it seemed like it was bottlenecking into other things I had on my docket, and the correct frequency of just getting the engines all hummed up and percolating, and it seemed right. It seemed like it was on time. It was right on time to be the next thing I put the most attention into. So.
And then you consider Yesness your new premier band, right?
Yeah.
And Kristian, how is it about you? How does L1011 work with Yesness, schedule-wise?
So far, so good. It's sort of a leapfrogging thing. In fact, we're going to start recording the next L1011 record in a couple weeks, which is perfect because we'll finish recording, hopefully, the new L1011 record. And then after that, I go on tour with Damon for a Yesness tour. When I get back from that, I'll probably be mixing the new ETE record. Then I'll do a tour with Damon in April. Then it'll be the following summer, probably, I'll say maybe an L1011 tour, but also working on the next Yesness record. So far, so good. They've been leapfrogging each other beautifully.
So you are telling us that basically you two have already been working on new material. Yeah,
we're actually really excited about it. I'll speak for myself. I'm more excited about the new material than, this is how artists always are. But I'm more excited about our new stuff than what we did on the record, even though I love the record. And on the tour, we're going to be playing a bunch of those new songs we've written. And then at the end of the next tour, we're going to end the tour at a recording studio and record them for the next record. So yeah, it's going to be quick with this band, it seems.
You'll have road tested Yesness tracks for the next release.
Yeah, which makes me really excited because we weren't able to do that on the first record, which is fine. I love how the record came out, but it'll be interesting to see, since on these new ones we're going to road test them, how they change, if they change.
First of all, I find it amazing that the first record is not completely cycled. The tour hasn't gone on and everything like that, and you are already thinking ahead for the second phase, which is awesome.
It's not even out yet.
Right.
Not even out.
When we are talking, the record is not even out. When you people will see this, it probably will, because when you see this, it's December. So yes, but still, like having listened to this first record, I am already grateful to hear that there's going to be another one, because I just like it so much.
Wow, great.
But we have to talk about that title. I'm an English teacher, so I think I know the language pretty well, but you make me look up a word. Solipsism. Well, I want you to explain that. I've looked it up. I think I understood half of it. What is solipsism?
I don't know exactly how the dictionary defines it, but I know what it means. It basically is the belief that you can only prove that your existence is real. You don't know if anyone else's existence is real. So you feel as though maybe you're living in the Matrix. Everybody else is fake. So the title's a joke, and it's I got to figure out a way to tell this story in interviews more quickly, but I got the idea for the title from listening to an interview with, I think, Richard Dawkins. I got to check on that. And he was relating a story that he had in some interview said, sometimes I feel like a solipsist. And then a couple months later, he was at a convention or something, and so this woman came up to him and said, "God, it's great to meet another solipsist," which is hilarious.
Yeah.
So that's where the idea of it came from.
To explain it to everybody, the paradox in that lies, trying to prove or being able to only prove your own existence, but then meeting up with other people who do the same thing. That is the paradox. It is wonderful to hear that. It's like a little as you said, it's like a joke in the title already. And it also, as I said, it brings positivity. It brings like a smile onto people's faces as soon as they understood it.
Well, and also it took us a while to make sure we had the right phrasings. We said, see you there. Like, we're going to be there too. We're
yeah.
Too. Like, we're all.
Yeah,
it's also humorous in the sense that we perhaps are complete fools, in thinking that we don't even quite understand solipsism, but we've jumped on board for the convention anyhow, just because we're trendy idiots.
Sounds like Wedding Crashers. Sounds like Wedding Crashers. Like, we don't know you, but we like the food over
Yeah, totally Wedding Crash. Yeah.
What I like, and that is also something where one sees that little bit of like ironic humor is in some of your track titles. I mean, like, there is another paradox that we should talk about, and that is horror snuggle. I might get one from my wife when I came out, because it's
Yeah, that's perfect. There you go.
But
You're in trouble.
Horror snuggle?
Well, you've heard the edict. One man's trash is another man. One man's garbage is another man's jewel and treasure.
Yeah.
It's one man's horror might be another man's snuggle comfort. Or like a juxtaposition of some things that frighten the pants off of someone else might be delectable to someone else.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if you noticed that some of your track titles, with minor changes in orthography, become something totally different. If I look at see-through wolf costume, if you put a minus in between, see-through wolf costume, I just find that it is a wonderful thing, and it once again shows like a grown-up kind of humor. Is that something that you two also on a private basis like humor, where you have to think about it?
I would dare say so. Kristian, you on board with that?
Yeah. I mean, if you guys could see Damon and my text exchanges, they're full of these. Like, we'll just think of just gibberish that makes us laugh and send it to each other almost every day, and we just have the same sense of humor. And the best way to describe it might be the way you just did. So, an adult humor, sure, or maybe it's so childish it's adult. I don't even know.
It's the same harvesting process as the music. We're collecting a large vessel of things we use to entertain ourselves with, and then we scrape off the best stuff off the top, and then you get that as the song titles.
Yeah, but at the same time, and here we can go another circle, at the same time it shows a band, not a project.
Yep. I mean, that's how I think of this, as a band, not, this is my side project and I hired Damon to play drums on it. No, it's a band. It's a 50-50 everything.
Yeah. And then, of course, we also have to talk a little bit about the technical side of your record. First off, would you agree with me when I say, like, your record demands headphones?
No. Go ahead, Damon.
Well, no, I would be incapable of subscribing to that personally, because I've never listened to a record through headphones, I don't think. It's either been, it's been on numerous audio rigs. I mean, I was delighted to the test pressing and find that the vinyl wax sounded just excellent. But I don't think I've listened. I don't think I have listened to our record on headphones to date.
Yeah, and I think generally,
sorry,
I think all records sound better on headphones, or most records. I think it just.
Yeah. I think it also depends a little bit on, how should I say? It depends a little bit on
things that could be distracting. And also you just hear intimate parts of the music that you wouldn't quite catch if you're driving your car, say, or something.
Yeah, for example, the mixing, you know, when I listened to it again today, I had this wonderful moment when one of the sound elements was moving from left to right and then going a little bit back to the center again. That was a wonderful moment. Probably nothing really intentional, but it just, again, you know, it's a pleasure to listen to. And
it was intentional.
See, once in a while.
I spent a lot of time on panning. That's what you're talking about is technically called panning, when the left to right stuff. I nerd out on that stuff. So that was very intentional.
I go nuts with all of those same concepts that are very, very, you know, quick to grip one when the headset is put on. But I like my big room full of speakers and bumping and grinding and all that stuff.
And what I could also congratulate on, you passed the daughter test. You know, my daughter doesn't listen to my kind of music at all. But when I played it to her, she was like, yeah, that sounds good.
How old is she?
She's turning on 12 in a few months.
Okay.
So, you know, like, you know, the years when daddy's music was interesting are long gone. But, you know, that's a different topic. But she noticed something, and that struck me. She noticed that she didn't put it into the exact same wording, but she spoke about indirectly, she spoke about the paradox between sounding easy and probably being pretty complicated. Was that paradox? You know, the record sounds, as I said, it sounds wonderful. It sounds uplifting. And at first glance, it might sound easy unless you dig a little deeper. Was that already clear from the beginning when you set out? I mean, like, you two are accomplished musicians. You know what the other one stands for. Was that clear that it would be something that way?
Well, I guess I'll take it, Damon, then you can jump in. I think that's just reflective of the kind of music that Damon and I like. I mean, because of the types of musicians we are and the bands we've been in, we attract a lot of other musicians who are maybe impressed by what we do, but we don't care about that. We don't listen to music for that sort of excitement. We just want to hear music that moves us emotionally. And if it's impressive in addition to that, that's great. So that's always, I mean, even in L1011, that's what I try to do. I'm trying to make music that moves people, not that impresses them. So if we're doing stuff that is impressive and it's challenging, you know, for musicians, that's fine, as long as first it's a good song. That's what really matters. Do you agree with that, Damon?
Absolutely, yeah.
And then, of course, of course, Kristian, you knew who you were working with, but were you surprised at some of the turns that Damon provided for the songs?
For sure. Yeah, there would be times when I'd send him an idea and he'd send a drum part back that was not, you know, people think of Damon, they probably think, oh, he can do all this insane stuff, and he can beautifully. But he would send something that was relatively simple, but just perfect, like with really good feel, really inventive in a you know, in a small way that's not overwhelming the song. It was just so good. I'm like, this is why he's not, sorry, I'm just blowing Damon up here, but he deserves it. He's not just the ripper. Like, he's really creative with his drum parts. Like, even the simpler ones are just so good, so perfect. They're just what the song needed, just exactly like taking the song from here and putting it there. And that was really, really encouraging to me, because I'm like, I know the dude rips. I know he can do the ripping stuff. But very early on, he was sending me stuff that was not super complicated, but was perfect. I'm like, oh, this is going to be really good. I was very pleased.
Yeah. It is all very much in, how should I say? It's very much at the service of a song, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. The songs come first.
Yeah. I can definitely see it on the record. But Damon, you wanted to say something. Sorry.
Well, no, you can make room in the composition to have a little celebration of show-offery, if you will. You know, but but you know, but you know, the fun, the I don't like the word fundamental, but the essence of the track is priority one, you know. And then the garnish and the details and the side dish that goes with the main course are, you know, they're optional and rotatable, and I'm going to bet, even we've never played any live shows yet, but I'm going to bet that there are some things that will be a little bit different from night to night, like you know, in certain passages.
Yeah. You know. And I mean, like, of course, that is also something that lives in the moment, right?
Yeah.
However, of course, I have to ask that, Damon, you've just said it, you know, like, first, the song comes first. But how must I imagine you reacting to Kristian's first ideas? Are you sitting there and are you like theoretically planning out something, or is it a very spontaneous way of reacting to his stuff?
It depends. Sometimes I get a hunch that a certain track is like, ooh, we got to handle this one with like a vial of plutonium. Let's not blow this up the wrong way. We got to get this right. And then other ones, I just go with my first instinct, and then it gets refined from there. But have in mind, there's also like maybe another half dozen tracks that didn't make the batch that gets worked on. And so the ones that do see the light of day are usually, it's once again, it's that I hate to keep using that cream of the crop.
No, that's good. That's
metaphor, but it's true. It's
the cream of a crop.
Getting the
right?
best stuff off the top with everything we do.
But
sure.
then again, you've already indirectly proven Kristian's point when you say, like, you've mentioned, like, oh, we are already working on new material. We are very effective in the way we are writing. You must be very effective. If you've recorded this full record, if you've worked on, let's say, a handful or two handful other ideas, and you're already working on new material, that again speaks for the band, definitely. Wonderful to hear that, and it's something that, you know, like, not very often, especially I think you don't hear that very often with music that is post-rock. I think with a lot of post-rock bands over the years I've heard, or post-rock adjacent, I've heard, like, okay, we've done 10 tracks and those are the 10 tracks on the record. At the same time, that also shows, or it indicates, that when you set out, also, like, getting things together, like getting the album together, you must have had several other choices, right? How did you then decide on, okay, those dozen tracks?
Which, say again, tracks? What, both?
Yeah,
tracks?
well, like how do you decide on, like, okay, this dozen of tracks or these 13 tracks? How did you then decide those are going to be the cut? Those are going to be on the record?
I mean, I guess the record producer inside of me screaming to get out just makes the call. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're lucky. I mean, one of the reasons this is going well is because Damon and I tend to be on the same page a lot of this stuff. You know, like when we came up with I forget how many record songs are on the record, 11 or whatever it is. The few that got cut, we both agreed. We're like, yeah, that one's not really working. So let's just. I don't think there was ever a time when Damon wanted to cut something and I didn't, or vice versa. I don't think. Was there, Damon? I don't remember that.
If there was, I can't remember it. I mean, we successfully moved on, I would like to think I'm a tactful enough lunatic that if you gave the axe to something I thought was the best thing I'd ever heard, I would wait 6 months and go, hey, whatever happened to that one track we used to work on? And you go, which one? I'd sneak it back in that way if we ever disagreed on a track, I think.
Yeah.
And then it's also a very self-reliant affair. It's more or less only the two of you. Although you have a few guests, and here maybe that explains my idea a little bit. you include both guests that you have on the record, they provided strings. First question, did you already tell them what to play, or were they given free rein?
Both. So I'd written out the string parts and recorded them just in the computer with fake strings, just to get an idea of what it would sound like.
Yeah.
And for both of them, I sent them what I had, and then I said, you can just copy this if you want, or if you prefer, you think you can come up with something that beats it, great. Do whatever you want. It's whatever you're comfortable with. And we ended up with sort of a combination of both.
Cool. And that is also, like 1/3 of the tracks has got strings on them. So that's really a cool thing. And it gives the record just like that little extra kick, that little extra that makes it wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, you've already mentioned, like the distance in between. Is that something where you say, okay, that might also at some point be a little benefit because, you can't go on each other's nerves 24/7, you live far apart. Maybe that also makes it easier a little bit?
Experience. I don't have a comparison.
Sorry, Damon, you were glitching there. Could you say that again?
Sure. This is a new compositional experience for me, so I really don't have a formal experience to compare it to.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're finding as much capability, a comfort in our capability of what we're achieving,
Mm-hmm.
Despite the any inhibition the circumstance would bring.
Mm-hmm.
We'd probably get more done if we lived in the same town. Yeah, it would be easier to say, well, here, I'll see you tomorrow afternoon, and then but we haven't had our first rehearsals together, so we'll see how that alters the writing process when we have time to just give 2 weeks to just playing every day in person and see before we hit the stages and see how that alters the new material that's still in its creative stage because it's it hasn't been recorded yet.
I have three more questions before we come to the final quickfire round. First off, are there any influences for one of you or for the other connected to this record where he's like, okay, that is something that influenced me here on this record?
I can't think of anything.
Yeah, it's a hodgepodge of my entire vocabulary is what you're getting from me at this point in my life, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful.
That vocabulary was shaped from all of my influences over time.
Okay. Yeah, and those, of course, those over a longer period of time have formed you, so it's not possible to single them out, of course. What is striking about the record, or what I like about the record, is the conciseness of it. We have 12 songs, all somewhere between 2.5 minutes and a little over 4. Is that for you like the perfect length for a post-rock / math rock, however we want to call it, rock song?
Well, we don't write post-rock or math rock songs, so I'm not sure
you're right.
how to answer
rock
that.
Songs, right? Yeah.
Damon and I don't listen to post-rock or math rock. I know that seems like a ridiculous thing for us to be saying.
We're on a campaign to strictly correct post-rock and math rock accusations dealt in our direction. If we fail miserably a year from now or so, you'll be calling us math rock and we'll be nodding our heads yes. So.
No. First off, to make it clear, I think if one has to put you into, if one wants, not has to, wants to put you in a genre. Of course, those are the first two that come to mind because of the polyrhythms, because of instrumental nature. However, first off, I'm very sure that you never set out to write a genre record, because no musician does that. At least not at some stage in their musicians' lives, then they just want to play something that they like. However, of course, to come back to the songs, they are nicely short.
Well, yes, to answer your question, you're asking about the length. Is that ideal?
Yeah.
I was very adamant about our debut release being a full-length album. Initially, there were talks between Kristian and the record label that maybe we would just do a single or do an EP. And I felt strongly that we should do a LP length debut, full length debut, because my rationale is, if we put it out and it fails miserably, at least, if somebody ever dusts it off again years down the road, they have a whole album to listen to what they pissed on and or neglected or whatever, abusive word. And if we just did a single and it failed miserably, it would be like super lost forever. Whereas there's still a chance that your work wasn't completely in vain if your debut release is a full length. And so I felt strongly about that, maybe erroneously or in vainly, to whatever end, malfeasant. Not malfeasant, but to what's the word I'm looking for? To no effect, I guess. Maybe I was just waxing on pointlessly, but for whatever. To answer your question, I think it's a good length for a full length debut. I felt.
Yeah, and I think to go back to what we were talking about not wanting to impress people, just wanting the music to be moving. To me, math rock is straight up just trying to impress people. I think that's why I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And then post rock, I find just incredibly boring and cliched and predictable. So that's why we get defensive about those labels, because we use odd time signatures, but so does Radiohead. They don't get called math rock. So does the Beatles do too. Nobody calls them math rock. So I think with the length of the songs, we were writing songs that we think are catchy, and we said what we needed to say in 3 minutes. So why keep going? You never know. Like on the next record, maybe there'll be some songs that are 10 minutes long, because that's what we needed to do to get our point across, so to speak. I don't know.
To totally agree with that. The Beatles are never called math rock. Of course not. I've heard people talk about like Radiohead labeling them this or that. But I totally agree with what you say. Like, the first thing for every musician should be to do something they like, and the second should be, at least in my mind, not overcomplicated. Because I think, at some point it will become boring.
How many completely baked stoner couch potatoes know that Pink Floyd Money is in 7? Probably.
Exactly.
Probably a very small ratio to the rest of their fandom.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it right there. That's it. Like, that's an odd time signature and no one knows. And that's perfect. That's what I love.
Yeah. And it's something where, once again, you can point out, okay, the song gets what the song demands.
I like that. I like that.
Thank you. You're allowed to borrow it. No problem.
Okay.
And you have been talking about tour plans. So let's get that straight. When can we see the two of you where?
Well, as we're recording this, the January tour has been announced and the tickets are on sale, and that's the sort of the western half of the United States. Mm-hmm. And then in April, we'll be going across the bottom of the country and doing sort of East Coast and middle of the country stuff. That hasn't been announced yet, because it's just, even though the shows are booked, it's just a little too soon. Mm-hmm. But so come April of 2025, we'll hopefully get to most of. I mean, inevitably, whenever we post tour dates, people will write on Instagram or whatever, come to this city, come to that. Why aren't you coming here? Jesus.
Yeah, to me, it's not the city. It's just, I think that I dislike the fact how clearly you disspelled the word Europe. But okay. Just joking. I think it's a cool way, like first get all of the West Side done where you are living, Kristian, if I remember correctly, and then I know that Damon is not living on the East Coast, but close. Yeah, but that makes sense. So, gentlemen, first of all, thanks for all the insight into the new record. But nobody leaves the Veil of Sound interview without, at the end, having to go through the infamous quickfire round. I will give both of you the same couplets, and sometimes it might be musicians versus each other. Sometimes it might be bands versus each other. You'll always get two choices, and both of you then have to answer, or you both have to choose and maybe give a short explanation. As I have seen that you, Kristian, sometimes play a double neck, I thought of, which other famous musician is doing that? So let's start out for both of you with Rick Nielsen versus Alex Lifeson. Cheap Trick versus Rush.
It's a tie for me.
I thought they were both good guitarists, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you had to choose?
Well, okay, it's conceivable that Alex Lifeson may be one of the greatest guitarists of all guitarists. But none of that would detract from my enjoyment of Rick Nielsen's guitar playing, though.
Yeah, Rick Nielsen's more, when we were talking about doing what's right for the song, not trying to be impressive. He's not technically a great guitar player, but he's a great songwriter, a great showman. It's what he does is perfect. It's great.
Yeah. He's a very good entertainer.
Yeah.
In all the technical aspects of it, because I think you cannot be a good entertainer if you're not good at your instrument, and Rick definitely is.
Yeah.
So let's do the same thing for Mr. Che. Neil Peart versus John Stanier.
I'm a big fan of Neil Peart. Well, I mean, Neil Peart had some developmental effect on my, in my formative years as a young percussionist. Mm-hmm. Whereas I kind of look at John as more of a colleague. And there might also be the conflict of interest of him being in bands with ex-bandmates of my own. And so, but it would be no reflection on, it would not be saying anything about John's drumming if I were to say I like Neil Peart better, would it? Because I probably do.
Kristian, could you choose on those two?
It's so hard. I feel the same way as Damon. I don't know John. I've never played with him or anything, but I do feel like he's somewhere in the ballpark of my age, and our bands kind of started at the same. Well, it's his current band, I guess. So yeah, I feel like Neil Peart's one of those guys who was a hero when I was a kid, and John's more like a contemporary. So that it's, I don't know. I mean, I guess I would go
even if we weren't fans of both. I mean, Neil Peart's a guy that started in the 70s. John's a guy that started in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I feel like Neil Peart is a teenager hero, and John is someone who I admire greatly, who's more of a contemporary. Contemporary is a good word, so it's just hard to. It's hard to. They're just too different to pick, I think. Sorry if it seems like we're being evasive, but
no. If one is evasive and gives so much good thought to one's evasiveness, that's totally fine. Two bands that started not exactly around the same time as both of you started with your bands, but similar. Drive Like Jehu versus June of 44.
Oh, that one's easy for me.
So
yeah, I was going to say, you just tapped straight into Kristian's wheelhouse there. So I mean,
yeah, Drive Like Jehu is one of my favorite. Their first record is one of my favorite records of all time, and I don't really ever listen to June of 44 with all due respect. So that one's easy.
June of 44 have some really good songs. If you, Anatanka is a really great album, and so is the one before it. But I think Drive Like Jehu were probably the more bitchin' rockin' on stage band.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you also see that with some of the follow-up bands, you know, like, yeah. Again, entertainment value, right?
Well, but it's also they're really, even though they're heavy and screamy, it was super artistic too. I think that's why I was so in love with it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's entertaining again on the entertainment factor, but also really good musicians.
Yeah, and really deep material. It was fantastic, in my humble opinion.
I totally agree with that. Again, two bands, I think this time even more separate. But I think, let's see what you'd say to what you two say to Tortoise versus Liars.
Liars, the garage rock band from Boston.
No, they're not from Boston. Wait. Before I say something wrong, I don't want to mess it up. I think they're not from Boston. You're now pinning me. No, not Boston. Wait.
We're talking about the Liars. I think they toured with Radiohead briefly years ago. I think that might be who you're talking about.
I'm talking about the Liars who have Drums Not Dead.
Oh,
record.
Never heard it.
But yes, they were touring with Radiohead. That is true. I've seen them on a tour.
What's the other group? What
Tortoise.
I might be disqualified. Yeah, I'm going to be straight. I lived in Chicago for 2 years, and it wasn't a very. I don't feel I was treated very nicely, and it's no reflection on any one artistic outlet or record label or anything like that. But I just, through thick and through thin, I must say I'm very not so impressed with Tortoise to date. Mm-hmm. And they may feel precisely the same way about me, and that's fine. And then the Liars, I don't know from a can of paint, my man. I do not know them. Sorry. So I'm almost disqualified from giving you any kind of legitimate answer on this round of the question.
Which is, again, you know, like you are giving good answers. It doesn't depend on whether you can choose one of them, but, you know, good answers. Kristian, could you choose?
Well, I would choose. I loved Tortoise's debut record. I think that was brilliant, especially when it came out. And I'm a bass player, and you know, on that record, there's tons of there's songs that have 3 basses in it. But like we were talking about before, it's not. It is impressive, but that wasn't the point. It was very artistic. So I love that record. And then as they released more and more records as they went on, I lost more and more interest to the point now where, a new Tortoise record. And then I try to listen and I'm like, okay. But then Liars, I don't know if I've ever heard them. I don't know.
It's very interesting that you say that thing about Tortoise. It's the very same thing with me. You know, like I love Millions Now Living. I enjoy TNT. But there is a point somewhere around the millennium mark where I'm like, okay, been there, done that, got my shirt.
Let me add, I bought the first Tortoise record when it came out too, and I thought it was okay. But when I got to know their scene and their shtick and their the whole motif in their place in the Chicago music scene, it didn't jive. It didn't gel well with me, I guess.
It's funny, you know, when people say that I bought their record when it came out, it always reminds me of one of our writers who, Knut, we love you, but whenever you're telling the story of, I bought that Black Sabbath record, the first one, on the day it came out, And we're all like,
Well,
okay,
I mean,
thank you.
I saw John McEntire play in Bastro in the late 80s, and they were absolutely stellar to behold on a stage. But Tortoise was just a little bit too much of a light beer version of
I love that comparison.
For me.
Can I keep that comparison? A light beer version?
If you want to.
Thank you.
Yeah, they were a light beer version of their potential, I think, is my problem with Tortoise.
Oh. That's an interesting thought. That's
their really potential was to be a thick, stout Pilsner or something, but light beer was all they ever, put out.
Okay, I have two more before we get into the absurd. One thing, I mean, like, you just hinted at the Beatles, so I'll give you two Beatles songs. I Am the Walrus versus Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
I don't like either. I don't like the Beatles, so whatever.
Okay.
Yeah,
toss them both.
Martha, My Dear is my favorite Beatles song. That's all you're getting out of me on the topic.
Kristian, would you then? I mean, like, it's the age-old question whether Beatles or Stones.
They can both go in the trash. They're both overrated, and I don't get it. I'm not trying to be mean. Like, if people love that music, that's great. But I when I listen to those bands, I just scratch my head. I'm like, what are people getting out of this? I'm getting nothing. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a point where Rolling Stones got kind of disco, and that's the era that most people hate. But that's when I thought they were actually good. Like Emotional Rescue.
Emotional Rescue is great. Really, Tattoo is a great album too.
But most people are like, "Oh, Goat Head Soup" or whatever that record is. I'm like, dude, this is Here's
what I'll say. Here's what I'll say. And not most. I mean, people have agreed with what I'm going to say. The Stones were excellent recording artists, but they were almost shit-faced as a live band. They were not a very good live band, And everyone knows that. And
it's very interesting you say that about a band who always, every 3 or 4 years, announces, "Oh, this is going to be our last tour."
Yeah.
And, for all those Stones fans out there, I can understand you. There are some great songs, but, that band is a bunch of hypocrites.
I think
that's either you do a last tour or not.
I think at least Keith Richards, I don't like his band, but I like him. I like hearing him interviewed and stuff. It's hilarious.
I mean, like, we all know those memes that go around the internet with Keith Richards sitting on a stool and saying, "Yeah, I still remember the time when Jesus was around. He was a teenager and I was already old."
I love it. It's great.
Or what was the one that I saw? Like, the time when Keith Richards killed the dinosaurs.
That's good.
What kind of world are we going to leave behind for our children and Keith Richards?
And Keith Richards. Those are good. I like those.
So the last one, and that is completely off of the music spectrum. New York Italian style pizza versus Californian/Mexican tacos.
I got to go with the New York pizza, but I mean, I need to start eating better, so I might have to go the California choice, more down the road. But
yeah, I'm kind of the same. I can't eat pizza because I can't eat dairy or gluten, which is really awful.
Oh, that's right.
But New York pizza is amazing. It is weird how good it is. You can just go into a crappy liquor store and buy a slice of pizza and it tastes amazing. And apparently it's the water. That's why the bagels taste better there and stuff. It's actually the water. That's the theory I heard. But I live in San Diego where there's Mexican food everywhere and it's great. I love it. But I mean, New York pizza, that's special.
So, gentlemen, first of all, thanks for all the details. Thanks for the maybe evasive, but still great answers to the quick question round. I like that. I really do. I rather have somebody who gives me an elaborate answer on that than, and maybe an answer that is, can't decide, with an explanation than A, B, C. Like what I mean.
Right.
So, and most of all, thanks for the record. See you at the Solipsist Convention. Everybody, if you haven't listened to the record yet, you will have a chance when this interview is out. So please do it and enjoy it. Maybe with headphones on or on a good big rig. However, you will probably enjoy the hell out of it. So, gentlemen, thanks for your time. And the very last question, as we are at Christmas time, favorite Christmas track?
Oh, you guys are going to hate me for this one, but none. I hate Christmas music. I don't like to use the word hate, but Christmas music makes me so uncomfortable and angry. It makes me way more angry than punk rock. It's so awful and so condescending and so fake sounding. I can't stand that part of Christmas. Sorry.
I'm almost with his answer. I'm not a very big fan of Christmas music, although I don't mind it on the PA at the box store for like that part of the year for the 3 times you're in the box store that month. It's okay. I don't like it much, but it does trigger and press the nostalgia buttons that bring back old memories of Christmases gone by, and that's great. But like, there might be like a passage in the Nutcracker Suite I admire, but I couldn't even name it.
Oh,
and I'm not.
Yeah.
Music.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you said that, Damon, because the Nutcracker Suite is brilliant. I love that, but the problem with that is we've heard it so much that you kind of can't hear it anymore.
That's true.
You kind of lose what was special about it. So that's fair. Yeah. So I guess I don't dislike all Christmas music. Mozart was a genius, so we'll give him that one.
For me, it's the other way around. I can enjoy quite a lot of Christmas music, also because of a wife and a child. But there is one Christmas song that I detest from the bottom of my heart. And even my students at school, you know, being an English teacher, they sometimes say like, can we sing a Christmas song? And I always say, yes, we can. Apart from one.
Just not Bing Crosby.
No, even Bing Crosby is okay. But if you play Last Christmas to me, I will puke, shit, and kick your ass.
Is that the George Michael one?
Yes. That song is the epitome of everything that is fake about pop music.
Oh, you know what? I might make more enemies than friends with this one too. I just realized I actually do like the Wings Christmas song. I forgot about that one.
Oh, yeah.
I actually do like the Wings.
That one's all right. Wings are cool. See, this is interesting. I think it's interesting.
It's
I
already
think Wings
two
are
that
way
you
better
like
than the
Mr.
Beatles. Well, I'm just I'm glad we had this conversation because I'm realizing some of it's all right. I think Wings are better than the Beatles. So there you go.
That is something that a lot of people might hate you for, yes. But who cares? It's Christmas.
I know. It's just my opinion. I'm not saying anyone else is wrong. Yeah. If they love the Beatles, that's great. I'm glad they're getting something from it.
And more people should after listening to this interview, should like Yesness. So, gentlemen, thanks for the interview. Enjoy the rest of your days.
If they know what's good for them, they will.
Enjoy the rest. Bye-bye.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Thanks, Thor.